You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right? You know that I throw hands, right?
Well, today in Tamarack, authorities are trying to solve a murder mystery after a young woman was found dead in her home earlier this week.
23-year-old Kayla Hodgen was found dead in an apartment in Tamarack about a week ago.
It was 3 p.m. on July 13, 2022, when Kayla Hodgson heard the knock on her apartment door. The 23-year-old flight attendant had just moved into her new place in Tamarack, Florida. She thought she was safe. She thought she was starting fresh, but standing outside her door was someone who had traveled over 1,000 miles with one deadly purpose in mind. Within minutes, Kayla would be found with her throat slashed, lying lifeless on her apartment floor. The woman who killed her? A complete stranger named Saki Nye Thompson from New York. But here's what makes this case so disturbing. Tasakiana and Kayla had only met once before, at a birthday party, for just a few hours. So what could possibly drive someone to cross state lines and commit such a brutal murder over a single encounter? The answer lies in one of the most dangerous emotions known to humanity, jealousy, and the twisted story of how a simple conversation at a party turned into a deadly obsession that would destroy two lives forever. Welcome to our channel. Right now, there are thousands of young women like Kayla who are living their lives, working their jobs, and building their dreams, completely unaware that someone's jealousy and obsession could turn them into a target. If you want to help spread awareness about the dangers of jealousy-driven violence and the warning signs that could save lives, then please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Your action now could help protect another person who might be facing a similar threat. But what Sakina believed about Kayla and her boyfriend would lead to the most shocking motive you've ever heard. Kayla Hodgson was the kind of person everyone wanted to be around. At just 23 years old, she had this amazing ability to light up any room she walked into. Her friends called her the life of the party, and they meant it in the best way possible. She was just really sweet, said Swana Alphonse, who was both Kayla's friend and former boss. She was the life of the party. She always had kind words. Kayla worked 2 jobs to chase her dreams. During the day, she was a flight attendant, traveling the skies and meeting people from all over the world. But at night, she became one of South Florida's most popular bartenders and bottle waitresses. She was well known in the nightlife scene, not just for her work, but for her genuine kindness. Her family described her as having a vibrant personality and big heart. They said she was everybody's hype man, always ready to lift others up and make them feel special. Kayla was the type of person who remembered your birthday, asked about your family, and made you feel like you mattered. She had compassion, humbleness, and loyalty, her family wrote after her death. These weren't just nice words. This was who Kayla really was. Working in the service industry, Kayla touched hundreds of lives. Customers became friends, co-workers became family. She was building something beautiful in South Florida, creating connections and spreading joy wherever she went. But Kayla's bright future was about to be destroyed by someone she barely knew, someone who had been watching her, someone who had decided that Kayla was a threat that needed to be removed. What happened next would shock everyone who knew her and leave an entire community asking one terrifying question: how well do we really know the people around us? July 13, 2022 started like any other day for Kayla Hodgson. She was settling into her new apartment at the Tamarack Village complex on Northwest 57th Street. The area wasn't known for crime, and Kayla felt safe in her second-floor home. But sometime that afternoon, everything changed. At exactly 3 p.m., someone called 911. The caller reported finding an unresponsive woman in one of the apartments. When paramedics rushed to the scene, they discovered something horrific. Kayla was already dead. She had been stabbed multiple times with a sharp object. The attack was so violent that investigators later described it as showing a depraved mind without regard for human life. Kayla had fought for her life, but her attacker had come prepared to kill. The news spread quickly through the apartment complex. Residents who had just been going about their normal day suddenly found themselves in the middle of a murder investigation. Homicide detectives swarmed the complex. They spent hours processing the crime scene, taking photos, collecting evidence, and interviewing anyone who might have seen something. A white SUV was towed away as potential evidence. But here's what made this case so puzzling from the start. There was no obvious suspect. Kayla didn't have enemies. She wasn't involved in anything dangerous. She was just a young woman trying to build a life for herself. The residents of Tamarack Village went to bed that night knowing a killer was still out there. They locked their doors a little tighter. They looked over their shoulders a little more often. Nobody could have guessed that the person responsible for this brutal murder had already fled the state, or that the motive behind Kayla's death was something so twisted it would leave everyone asking, how far would you go for revenge? The Broward Sheriff's Office had a problem. They had a brutal murder, but no clear suspect. Kayla Hodgson seemed to have no enemies. She wasn't mixed up in drugs or crime. She was just a hard-working young woman who made friends everywhere she went. Detective Ian Keekler took the lead on the case. He and his team started from scratch interviewing Kayla's friends, family, and coworkers. They checked her social media, her phone records, and her recent activities. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Kayla was loved by everyone who knew her. Days turned into weeks, and the community grew more anxious. People in Tamarack Village were asking the same questions. Who did this? Are we safe? Could this happen again? The unknown is driving us crazy, one family member told reporters. The lack of answers was torture for everyone who cared about Kayla. Investigators worked around the clock. They processed every piece of evidence from the crime scene. They followed up on every tip that came in. But the case seemed to have no leads. That's when authorities decided to offer a reward: $5,000 for any information that could lead to an arrest. The announcement went out through local news stations and social media. But even with the reward money on the table, tips were slow to come in. It seemed like whoever killed Kayla had vanished without a trace. What investigators didn't know yet was that the killer had fled to New York immediately after the murder, and the motive behind this crime was so unexpected, so twisted, that when they finally discovered the truth, it would shock everyone involved in the case. The breakthrough was coming, but it would take almost 2 weeks to get there. On July 25, 2022, almost 2 weeks after Kayla's murder, investigators finally got their break. A warrant was issued for the arrest of 28-year-old Sakena Thompson from New York. But here's where this case gets really strange. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. What do you think could drive someone to travel over 1,000 miles to commit murder? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this motive is unlike anything you've probably heard before. Sakena Thompson was originally from Jamaica but had been living in New York. She had no criminal history that made her an obvious suspect. She wasn't a stalker or a known violent person. In fact, most people who knew her would have been shocked to learn what she was capable of. So what connected Sakena to Kayla? The answer lies in a birthday party that happened months before the murder. According to the information that came out during the investigation, Sakena had a boyfriend, and at this birthday party, all three of them were present. Sakena, her boyfriend, and Kayla. It should have been just a normal social gathering, people having fun, celebrating, enjoying each other's company. But Sakena noticed something that night that would eat away at her for months. She watched her boyfriend talking to Kayla. She saw him admiring her. And in Sakena's mind, this innocent conversation became something much more dangerous. Even though Kayla and Sakena's boyfriend lived in completely different states, Sakena became convinced that something was going on between them. She believed her man was cheating on her with Kayla. This belief grew stronger and stronger over time, turning into a deadly obsession. The jealousy consumed her. She couldn't let it go. She couldn't move on. Instead, she started planning something terrible. What makes this even more tragic is that there's no evidence Kayla was actually involved with Sakena's boyfriend. Friends and family said Kayla wasn't in a relationship at the time of her death. She was focused on her work and building her life in Florida. But in Sakena's mind, Kayla had become the enemy, the woman who was destroying her relationship, the threat that needed to be removed. So on July 13th, 2022, Sakina made a decision that would destroy 2 lives forever. She traveled from New York to Florida with one purpose: to confront Kayla face to face. What happened when she knocked on Kayla's apartment door would shock investigators and leave a community wondering how jealousy could drive someone to such extreme violence. On July 25, 2022, the Broward Sheriff's Office issued a warrant for Sakina Thompson's arrest. But she wasn't in Florida anymore. She had fled back to New York immediately after killing Kayla. New York City police tracked her down to Springfield Gardens in Queens. When they knocked on her door, Sakina knew her time was up. The arrest was swift and without incident. She didn't resist or try to run. It was almost like she had been waiting for this moment. The news of the arrest spread quickly back to Florida. Residents of the Tamarack Village apartment complex finally felt like they could breathe again. "I am very happy to hear about it because we were scared," said Sheila Hernandez, who lived above Kayla's apartment.
I am very happy to hear about it because we were scared. We heard different stories from different people.
Making an arrest makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I feel terrible that this happened. It should not happen to anybody.
I feel terribly bad that happened to her. I'm very happy. It makes me feel a lot better and more secure that they finally arrested somebody.
But the relief came with new questions. How did investigators connect Sakina to the crime? What evidence did they have? The arrest affidavit revealed disturbing details about the murder. According to court documents obtained by CBS4, Sakina was charged with first-degree murder. The affidavit stated that she was demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life by stabbing with a sharp object with a premeditated intent to cause death. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of anger. This was planned. Sakina had thought about this, prepared for it, and carried it out with deadly intent. Sakina was held at the Rose M. Singer Center on Rikers Island while authorities worked on getting her back to Florida. The extradition process began immediately, but it would take time to complete all the legal paperwork. During this time, more details about Sakina emerged. Records showed she was originally from Jamaica, but had been living in New York. She had no significant criminal history that would have predicted this level of violence. Back in Florida, Kayla's friends and family were relieved that someone had been arrested, but they still had so many questions. How could a single conversation at a party lead to murder? How could jealousy drive someone to travel across the country to kill? The arrest brought some closure, but it also opened up new questions about the power of jealousy and how quickly obsession can turn deadly. Soon, Sakina would be back in Florida to face justice for what she had done. To understand how this tragedy happened, we need to look at what was going on inside Sakina Thompson's mind. Jealousy is one of the most powerful and dangerous emotions humans can experience, and in this case, it turned deadly. Think about it. Sakina and Kayla lived in completely different states. New York and Florida are over 1,000 miles apart. They had only met once, at that birthday party. Yet somehow, Sakina became so convinced that Kayla was a threat to her relationship that she was willing to kill for it. This wasn't normal jealousy. This was obsession. After that birthday party, Sakina couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen. Her boyfriend talking to Kayla, him admiring her. In Sakina's mind, these innocent interactions became proof of betrayal. She replayed that night over and over, each time making it worse in her head. What's really scary is how this obsession grew over time. Sakina didn't just get angry and move on. Instead, she let these feelings build up inside her for months. She probably spent hours thinking about Kayla, wondering what was happening between her and the boyfriend, creating scenarios in her mind that may never have been real. This is how dangerous jealousy works. It starts small. Maybe just an uncomfortable feeling when you see your partner talking to someone else. But if you don't deal with those feelings in a healthy way, they can grow into something much darker. Experts who study this kind of behavior say there are usually warning signs before someone becomes violent. The person might start checking their partner's phone constantly. They might ask lots of questions about where their partner has been or who they've talked to. They might become suspicious of innocent friendships or conversations. In Sakina's case, we don't know exactly what warning signs there might have been, But we do know that her jealousy reached a point where she was willing to travel across the country to confront someone she barely knew. The really tragic part is that there's no evidence Kayla was actually involved with Sakina's boyfriend. Friends and family said Kayla wasn't in a relationship at the time. She was focused on her work and her own life. She probably had no idea that someone in New York saw her as a threat. This shows how jealousy can make people see things that aren't really there. Sakina created an entire story in her mind about Kayla being the other woman, even though it probably wasn't true. What makes this case even more disturbing is the planning involved. Sakina didn't just get angry and do something stupid in the moment. She had to buy a plane ticket or drive from New York to Florida. She had to find out where Kayla lived. She had to bring a weapon. Every step of the way she had chances to stop and think about what she was doing. But the jealousy was too strong. It had taken over her ability to think clearly. People who study violent crime say that jealousy-driven murders often happen when someone feels like they're losing control. They can't control their partner, they can't control the situation, so they try to control it through violence. The saddest part is that this whole tragedy could have been prevented if Sakina had talked to someone about her feelings, a friend, a counselor, even her boyfriend. Maybe she could have worked through her jealousy in a healthy way. Instead, she let it consume her until it destroyed two lives, Kayla's and her own. The murder of Kayla Hodgson sent waves of shock and fear through the Tamarack community. This wasn't supposed to happen in their quiet neighborhood. The Tamarack Village apartment complex had always been considered a safe place to live, but suddenly residents were questioning everything. "We were scared," said Sheila Hernandez, who lived above Kayla's apartment. "We heard a lot of different stories about different people. The fear was real and it lasted for weeks. People started locking their doors more carefully. They looked over their shoulders when walking to their cars. The sense of safety that had always existed in their community was gone." Frederick Thomas, another neighbor, spoke for many when he said, "We need some justice. The murderer needs to be caught. It's as simple as that."
I've just seen her. Don't know nothing about her. I think we need some justice. The murderer needs to be caught.
It's a life cut short. But the impact went far beyond just the apartment complex. Kayla's murder hit the South Florida hospitality industry hard. She had been a popular figure in the nightlife scene, known and loved by customers and coworkers alike. Swana Alphonse, Kayla's former boss and friend, described the devastating effect on their workplace. "I was devastated. Most of my employees were as well, especially the ones that knew her and worked alongside with her. It's just crazy, and it's scary because, we're all bartenders and waitresses, and that could have been any one of us."
Yeah, I was devastated. Most of my employees were as well, especially the ones that knew her and worked alongside with her. It's just crazy and it's scary because, we're all bartenders and waitresses, and that could have been any one of us.
This last comment really shows how personal this tragedy felt to people in the service industry. Kayla's coworkers realized that their jobs put them in contact with hundreds of strangers every week. If someone could develop a deadly obsession over a single conversation at a party, how safe were any of them? For Kayla's family and friends, the grief was overwhelming. They had lost someone who was described as everybody's hype man, the person who lifted everyone else up. The hole she left behind was enormous. Her family created a GoFundMe page to help with funeral expenses, describing Kayla's compassion, humbleness, and loyalty. The response from the community was immediate and generous. People who had never met Kayla donated money just because her story had touched their hearts. Friends shared memories on social media, posting photos and stories about the good times they had shared with Kayla. They talked about her infectious laugh, her kindness to strangers, and her dreams for the future that would never be fulfilled. The memorial efforts weren't just about saying goodbye. They were about making sure Kayla would be remembered for who she really was, not as a victim, but as a vibrant young woman who had made a positive impact on everyone around her. Even months after her death, people in Tamarack still talked about Kayla. Her story had become a reminder of how precious life is, and how quickly it can be taken away. Kayla Hodgson's murder teaches us important lessons about how dangerous jealousy can become. There are warning signs we all need to watch for, both in ourselves and in people we care about. Dangerous jealousy often starts with small behaviors that get worse over time. Someone might constantly check their partner's phone or social media. They might ask endless questions about where their partner has been or who they've talked to. They might get angry about innocent conversations or friendships. If you notice these behaviors in someone you know, it's important to speak up. Don't ignore it and hope it goes away. Jealousy that isn't dealt with can grow into something much more dangerous. For people struggling with these feelings themselves, there are resources available. Most communities have counseling services where people can talk through their emotions safely. Many employers offer employee assistance programs that provide free counseling. There are also hotlines people can call when they're feeling overwhelmed by anger or jealousy. The key is reaching out for help before the feelings become too strong to control. Communities can also take steps to protect themselves. Apartment complexes and neighborhoods can improve lighting and security systems. People can look out for their neighbors and report suspicious behavior to police. If someone feels threatened by an ex-partner or someone who's been showing signs of dangerous jealousy, they can seek legal protection. Restraining orders and protective orders are available in most states. Police take these situations seriously, especially when there's evidence of escalating behavior. The most important lesson from Kayla's story is this: jealousy-driven violence is preventable. It doesn't happen overnight. There are usually warning signs and opportunities for intervention. If we all learn to spot these warning signs and take them seriously, we can help prevent tragedies like this from happening again. Kayla's death doesn't have to be meaningless if it helps save other lives. As of now, Sakana Thompson has been extradited back to Broward County, Florida, where she faces first-degree murder charges in Kayla's death. She is currently awaiting trial, and the case is still working its way through the court system. During her time in custody, reports emerged that Sakana discovered she was pregnant while in jail. She appealed to the court to allow her to have her baby outside of prison, but the request was denied. This adds another layer of tragedy to an already heartbreaking case. Kayla Hodgson's legacy lives on through the people whose lives she touched. Her friends and family continue to honor her memory by sharing stories about her kindness, her infectious personality, and her dreams that were cut short. She will always be remembered as the life of the party who made everyone around her feel special. This case shows us how quickly jealousy can turn deadly, and how important it is to seek help when emotions become overwhelming. If this story has moved you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video to help spread awareness about these important issues. Let's keep Kayla's memory alive by learning from her story and working to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Rest in peace, Kayla Hodgson. Your light continues to shine through the lives you touched and the lessons your story teaches us all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.